been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with Chika Uwazie, who is a writer and cultural commentator, and someone who was instrumental in bringing a ton of visibility to the soft life movement. You've likely heard about this. This has become a global sensation on social media, and it's a movement about rejecting hustle and grind culture, slowing down, prioritizing comfort and self-care. So we're not only talking about Chika's involvement in this movement and the African roots of soft life values, but we are also discussing what practical integration and swaps look like for approaching life in this way. We also chat about career pivots, something we've both had plenty of, the transition from our 20s to 30s, and the differences we found in relationships and work life, and what we're hopefully looking forward to in our 40s. And although we focus on these decades quite a bit, life transitions happen at any and every age, so everyone can relate to loss of identity, rebuilding and reinvention, and becoming more of who you actually are versus who you have been told that you should be. Timeline grief was another big theme of this conversation, which is a term Chika uses to describe when life doesn't go as you had planned. So whether you think that you should be married by now or have X amount of dollars in the bank or have a certain job title, maybe own a house or have a kid, whatever kind of pressures have been put on you or you're putting on yourself, this is really an opportunity to let that shit go and do more enjoying than ruminating. All right, here is my conversation with Chika Uwazie. So I'm not really on social media. I deleted mine a few years back. However, even
Mm.
I have heard of the soft life movement. So I've been living under a digital rock basically, and it even, permeated me. So how did this concept come to be? And then how did you start putting it out there for other people to think about as well?
The soft life movement started, I would say, like 2018. It's actually African because I'm Nigerian, so
Okay.
it's like an African movement, and it was more so because I was a tech pro, and I tell people I was raising capital. I was going back and forth between being in Silicon Valley and Nigeria. I was running a tech company. It was an HR software company, and a lot of things happened when I exited from the company. Number one, I felt so exhausted. I felt tired. I felt disconnected with myself to the point where I have eczema, and my eczema was all over my neck, all over my hands. Like it was a physical manifestation of how stressed my body was. But when I started talking about soft life, it was more about how do I reconnect to myself as a woman who has intuition that's driven by that, not by always logic and analyzing everything, but what does my gut say? Connecting to the stillness, connecting to being present. And I did a lot of inner child healing as well. And so whenever I talk to people about that, I say, look, I don't talk about feminine energy or femininity to get a man. I do it because
Mm.
I want you to connect to yourself. And I think a lot of women, whether you are in tech world like I was, whether you're even building a company or you're a high level executive, so many of us are in our masculinity. So that was the reason why I talked about self love because it was a way for women to get back to center of who they truly are.
Yeah, you can get so sucked into that messaging in the entrepreneurial space. I've definitely been there as well. And so how can somebody actually apply that concept to their life? What does that actually look like if you're kind of exchanging or swapping this maybe harder life mentality with soft life stuff? What does that look like in a daily routine or,
Mhm.
weekly routine or something?
Yeah. So I think number one is how do you start off your morning, right? So most of us, let's be honest, we roll out of bed and we look straight into our phone. We're
Yep.
like, what's going on? What are the emails? What are people texting? And so think about your brain is like being inundated with outside information before you are telling yourself, how do you want to start your day? Right. And
Right.
I'm guilty of this as well. So one of the key things I tell people is just have a soft morning. Wake up, maybe go to the kitchen, drink some warm water, let your body be nourished. Maybe take it a little extra step, go outside, have the sun hit your face. Just be still in the moment. Like say, oh, I'm awake, thank God. Like I always say that when I wake up every morning, right? Because I feel it's a blessing. I'm grateful. And then you could do a simple routine, which is write 3 things you're grateful for the day. Journal it in. And what I love about this specifically is when you have a hard day, and we all have a hard day, if you look at the economy right now, right?
Yeah.
And you're able to go back to those days where you said, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for life, I'm grateful for building this thing. And you're reminded of how beautiful your life actually is. It's just really like having those moments. Another thing could be, let's say you're in the middle of a work day, you're just typing away at your computer, and you just take 1 minute to do a breathing exercise. Just breathe in and out. Most of us are having very shallow breathing. We're not breathing in deeply.
Yeah.
So just take, a few seconds just to and just breathe out, right? And also it's resetting your nervous system as well. So I always tell people it's like finding little moments of stillness, of being present and just reconnecting to yourself. That's what it looks like.
Weaving it in to your day. It doesn't have to
Yes.
be all or nothing. It doesn't have to take
No.
6 hours in the morning, it can just be those tiny little moments that you're
Yes.
stepping out of,
Yes.
the cycle we can get trapped in. So what do you say to the people who are like, but being on my phone in bed helps me wake up. How do I become alert or excited enough to get out of bed? How do you help those people?
So the question I'm going to ask back to them is, so why does things outside of you get you happy? Like, what does that look like? Like why do these like distractions get you more excited about life? And it
Right.
also tells me you're not sitting enough alone with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's a deep question a lot of people don't want to ask, right?
Yes.
Am I
Yes.
happy with my own self? Am I happy when there's no noise? Am I happy when I'm alone? But a
Right.
lot of people are not having those moments enough, and I think that's why midlife crisis starts happening because you're more into these like external things than just like being with yourself. So I will always ask that question back to them.
What gets you excited to get out of bed and start your day? I know for me it's changed over the years. It used to be like I used to
Mm,
have a hot bath in the morning and I would get excited about that. Now it's maybe a nice cup of tea or something. What gets you out of bed and ready to go, and how has that maybe evolved over time?
it's interesting. It's simple. It's something you just said, and it sounds so simple.
Yeah.
Peppermint tea.
Oh, there you go. So simple and so
So
delightful.
simple. Peppermint, a good or hibiscus. Good
Ooh.
hibiscus tea, just having something to warm up my body makes me feel good. If I wake up early enough, a short walk. It's interesting because in Maryland, we're known for cherry blossoms. I love seeing the cherry blossoms. Like, I have a huge cherry blossom tree outside. So just walking, seeing like the little petals fall, like, and there's this one street where you just see all these cherry blossoms. I just love seeing that
Oh,
in the
pretty.
morning. It just feels like it just I don't know. I'm a nature girl, so maybe not everyone's excited about nature, but I just love seeing the tree, the leaves change. That's what gets me excited.
I love that. There's a lot of narratives like you gotta like wake up and chug some coffee and do high intensity workouts and then check as much off your to-do list as humanly possible until the end of the day. And I like this just stepping back and say, well, what
Yeah.
what actually makes me feel good? Just being very present in your life and being true to
Mhm.
who you actually are. And I know you talk a lot about that transition from your 20s into your 30s. And I
Mm.
know for me, my 20s was jam-packed, nonstop, saying yes to
Yeah.
everything, not really
Yeah.
knowing what I was liking or not liking, but just doing things to do them. And then I found at that cusp of late 20s into my 30s is when I started removing a lot of things from my life so I could just focus on the handful of things that were most important to me. Do you find that that is a common pattern with that transition? Did you go through something like that? Or do you think there's some other patterns going on with that transition specifically?
So the interesting thing about your 20s is I personally think it's a time when you throw things out the wall. It's like
Yes.
anything goes, throw it. Does it stick? Does it not stick? I'm
Right.
pivoting, I'm changing, I'm with this girl, I'm not with this guy. Like it's all over the place. Right?
Yes,
And it's a hot
absolutely.
mess.
It's like, I don't know myself. Maybe you know me. I don't know myself yet, so
Exactly.
tell me who I am. Yeah.
Exactly. And I personally know how many pivots I had career wise in my 20s. Because I started in my
Yes.
20s thinking, okay, I have a psychology degree, like, and I knew I was going to get a master's. So the interesting thing was I applied right away to Georgetown. I got into the program. And then, like, talking to a few people, they were like, do you have any life experience? If you don't, this program, you need a little bit of life experience. So I started working. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll do foreign policy. And I kind of moved away from my original psychology degree and what I thought I was going to be doing. And then like a few years later, in my mid 20s, I circled back to it. 20s is just figuring out, discovering, and then at age 25, remember your prefrontal cortex is finally formed. This
Ah,
is when all the
amen.
logical
Finally.
decisions are happening, everything's kind of locking in, and you're like, and you see a different change of pace. It's crazy to me that people assume in your 30s you should have life figured out because I feel like your 30s is your time of becoming. It's your time of like truly leaning into your authentic voice. And I actually feel that in your 20s, it's more about what other people are saying. You're trying to get information, you're trying to soak things in. Your 30s is like, what am I actually saying? What do
Right.
I actually like? You know, and you're more so listening to your internal voice. So that's what I think is the difference between your 20s versus your 30s.
Yes, it's so nice to chat with somebody who has had a lot of transitions career-wise because
Mhm.
I have done the same thing and I've felt bad about that a lot that I
Yeah,
have transitioned quite a bit, but it always felt like an organic next step. But I'm surrounded by a lot of people who picked one thing and then stayed with that thing for decades, and I've
yeah,
woven in and out of stuff. Yeah, I feel like my 30s, it doesn't feel like I'm figuring things out in the same way. Like, I feel like I know who I am and I'm almost setting myself up for the decades to come, where the
yeah,
20s were like, I'm really trying to figure out what I even like. But now I
yeah.
know what I like and I'm trying to match what I like with how I make money and what how I spend my time. So I just recently turned 35 and I feel like, I've
Ooh.
got a decent hold on this decade, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I would love to know, have you chatted with any mentors of yours or people on your podcast or friends about what we might expect in our 40s or what that transition might be
Ooh.
like, that maybe it won't be such a shock to me when I get there.
What you said was quite eloquent and quite beautiful around your 30s. Like, I finally figured out what I like. Like, I'm still discovering things, but it's more of like I'm crystallizing this person of who I am.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in the 40s, there's a sense of confidence. I'm thriving, I'm moving. Now, some people may still be figuring things out, and that's okay, right? Because
Right.
like there's some amazing people that like transitioned in their 40s. Like I believe even Vera Wang is known for this, right? So it's not like you
Right.
have to have
Right.
everything exactly figured out. But I do feel for the most part in your 30s, if you truly start to lean into like who you are, leaning into more of like what I like to do, the ways I make money, then like your 40s is more of like this upward climb. And that's why, to be honest, a lot of women in their 40s, specifically women, they look stunning. They
Mhm.
look like they have this glow about them. It's like, it's just, I'm just clear. And at least that's what women in their 40s, say to me.
Mm,
And
that's
I'm looking forward to that decade, to be
Yeah,
honest. I
that's
am.
delicious. I can't wait. I can't wait to have a newfound confidence. I
Yeah,
can see how that could be the natural progression into the next
yeah.
decade. I'd love to know for you, in times of professional transitions, and I know you're a serial entrepreneur, you
Mhm,
have this background in tech, you're still in tech.
mhm,
How do you reflect those kind of inner changes to your outer world when you are moving into a new phase of your career? Like,
mhm.
what are the tangible things that you change to, like, kind of signal that a new version of you is happening?
So I feel like it's the conversations I'm having with my friends, and there's an honesty. And I tell people like I'm rebuilding, and I talk about this framework. Like I think there's a element of you're first like trying to reset, and you're trying to reclaim, and then you're rebuilding. So I tell a lot of people, and I'm very honest. I'm like, hey, I'm in this new chapter. That's kind of how I always say to people, I'm building this new
Yeah.
chapter to leading to this part of me, or oh, like I'm humbled a bit because I'm trying to understand this new thing I'm learning. So, for example, writing, I've always been a writer, but now I'm actually going to write a book. I have
Yay!
no idea how to write a book,
Yes,
right? I
so
have no idea.
exciting.
I have no idea publishing. I don't know nothing about that, right? And so I'm seeking out people and I'm getting help and I'm asking for it. So I think Threads has been quite beautiful for me because I literally put questions out there
Mm,
and the amount of responses that I get from people about things. I've hired people because of Threads because like I was trying to understand this thing. I've consulted with people because of Threads. So also I just put it out there in the universe and I really truly believe it's gonna come back to me with more
yeah.
clarity.
Making this transition more into, speaking and writing and all of that from the tech world, what was the reaction of maybe your
Mm.
peers or acquaintances?
I'm going to be very honest. And I don't know if I've spoken too much about this publicly. I was basically bullied on Twitter. Yeah, it's
Oh
a huge
boy.
reason why I don't. I tweet a little bit, but not at the same level as I used to. Specifically because there are some women who know me from tech, running a tech company, and it first started with like maybe 2 weeks before. This was like in 2021. It was like, oh, I noticed Chica's now doing this course, right? And they literally like put my full government name, and they're like, oh, this is how much she's selling her course. And I saw it and I didn't think too much of it. And I was like, oh, whatever, like, I don't even know what to make of this. And I just moved on.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, they essentially said, oh, like, Chika is preying on vulnerable women with this, like, new thing she's doing. Everyone knew me for running a tech company, raising millions of dollars. That's what they knew me for. And to be
Right.
honest, some of these people, like, wanted to collaborate with me, wanted to build new businesses with me, right? The moment I stepped into this new part of me, oh, it was a problem. But it was very hurtful for me. I actually stopped writing for years because of it. 2 years ago, when my husband noticed as we were going around the world nomadically, women kept approaching me saying, I miss your podcast. I miss your newsletter.
Oh,
Right.
interesting.
And it kept happening over and over again. And so my husband was like, babes, I know how you feel about this subject. I know you kind of slowed down on this and you kind of pivoted back into this tech world, but this is your purpose. The more vulnerable I've been, the deeper my connection has been with my community. It's been quite beautiful. But at first, they were not on board.
Oh my
There are some tech people that
gosh.
still don't talk to me because of it. It's really crazy.
That is isn't that just so interesting how when
Yeah,
you are becoming a new version of yourself, not everybody is cool with it.
aligned.
And how
Nope.
strange it is the reactions people can have that have nothing to do with you. Of course, it's all
Yeah.
just projection, but that was another question I had for you is what's it been like to have these transitions publicly because the majority of people have career or personal transitions privately, and here you have said that you faced actual like public criticism and cyberbullying and stuff. And
Yeah.
so how do you kind of navigate those things now having kind of been through it? What's the new perspective that you have on it now?
This goes back to like an age and wisdom element. So I'm 36, I'm going to be 37 in a few months. I don't care. I
Yeah.
am very clear of who I am. I
Yeah.
have a knowing about myself. Now, some of the topics I talk about, I probably would have never had said these things publicly back then because of what happened. But I think because I know the impact I'm having. I mean, yesterday, a guy that I look up to sent me a voice note saying, like, I enjoy everything you write. Like, you have given me so much courage, so much wisdom. And I get these messages all the time. I get emails from people. If that same lady had written those things, I would have ignored it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it comes with a knowing. And that's why I always tell people that it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to feel like, why I'm confused. I feel unseen. That was actually the thread I wrote about yesterday about like sometimes you're doing this work and you're unseen. But it's okay because as you keep going, as you keep moving, eventually you'll be discovered, right? And everyone that is meant to be around you will align, but it's a timing thing. And I think it's also an age thing as well.
I love
Yeah.
how, the older we get, the less shits we give about other
Yes.
people's opinions, and I'm, like, really excited I'm really excited to get to the pinnacle of that, you know?
Exactly.
I feel myself letting it go, but it still
Yeah.
can kind of grab a hold on me. I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's maybe it can help people just kind of expect that not everybody is going to react the way that we'd want, and instead of feeling bad about it, just think of, "Well, it's to be expected," I'm changing, and not everybody is going to be maybe interested in this new version of myself, or it makes them look at their life differently and their changes or lack thereof differently. We touched on a little bit of burnout. You said like, you were having these eczema breakouts and the
Yeah.
stress of your body was so apparent. And I know that I hit I feel like I hit a little bit of burnout or big burnout almost every decade. I hit a bad burnout when I was 15, then 25.
Mm.
25 is interesting because of the whole
Yeah.
frontal,
Yes.
cortex lobe. And then like maybe around 32, 33, and I noticed some similarities in the burnout that I experienced, but
Mm.
also differences as I get older. How have you felt, or what's your experience been with burnout or overwhelm the older that you get versus maybe what you experienced in your 20s when you made those shifts?
Yeah. So biggest difference for me is I did not understand femininity, and this is specifically I know men and women might might listen to this, but with women specifically, our cycles are very different. And I'm not even talking about, period cycles. I'm literally
Yeah.
talking about your energy cycle. So men, every 24 hours, it resets, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, physically they can kind of move through things. They're kind of like rules. They can do that because of their energy. Women, it's 30 days, right? So our
Yes.
energy is different throughout the month. Like there's sometimes we have high energy, sometimes we have low energy, right? Like right now, I'm a little bit like I'm realizing it's lower energy because of the time of the month, right?
Yeah.
But I think the difference is I did not understand these principles then. I'm looking at all the men around me in tech. They're moving at the speed of light. I'm trying to, move at the same pace as them. Now I slow down. So when I
Right.
have a day that I need to be a little bit more mindless, I don't feel guilty about it because I know like, well, my energy's a little bit low right now. Maybe it's time to reset. I need to be soft with my body. Maybe I don't need to hit the weights today. Maybe it's just a simple walk outside. Maybe it's, yoga, something more gentle. And my husband is my business partner. So I'm very transparent with him.
Ah,
I still get burnout, right? Like I just had a moment of burnout because I just launched a new podcast and some other things. I was in launch mode and I was very aware of I'm probably stressing my body. But
yeah.
I think the difference now is I'm aware of it. And then I kind of like put myself in like a more slow down mode to kind of nurse myself back up. And I honestly haven't had those crazy eczema breakouts since that last time. And I think that was like around 2018, 17. Like I had a really crazy eczema breakout. I haven't had that since.
Totally makes sense. I feel like I can't necessarily always prevent or avoid the burnout
Yeah,
completely, but I
you
can
can.
pull myself out of it much faster.
Yeah,
Like, okay, I've been here before. I know what works and I know what's going on.
exactly.
It was such a game changer for me too when I realized that my cycle impacts my energy and just, never even thinking about it. And now the Flow app is one of my best friends.
Oh yes, I have
Oh
the Flow
my
app.
gosh, I can't believe it is so helpful to just think, "Wow, I'm noticing I'm really anxious today," and then it'll pop up,
Yes.
you might be feeling anxious today because X, Y." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." It's okay. It's okay that our bodies are doing something differently and we don't have to be like everybody else. So, the fact that, you have a more mindful practice in your day to day, you've slowed down a little bit. Do you find that you are still doing as much as you used to, but you're just doing things that you enjoy so it doesn't feel like you're overbooked or
Mm.
overwhelmed? Or do you feel like you truly are doing less things in a day?
I'm more productive. I think that's how I
Yeah.
look at it. Around 2016 to like up until 2020 was the girl boss era. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think
Yes.
COVID happened. Everyone's like, oh, this is actually nice.
Right. Oh my gosh.
To stay
Yes.
still, to be present, to slow down, right? So for me, I'm not judging it off of like, oh, how many things did I do today? Okay, I was up at this time and I went to sleep at like I'm now like, did I get the things I needed to get done? Was I productive? Did I move 1% more than I needed to? My Instagram has grown like crazy. I get 30
Yeah.
million views per month, and I'm not moving at the same speed as I used to, right?
Right.
I'm just more dialed in into what are the things I need to do. And I have no problem outsourcing. So, for example, we just launched a podcast, and I was like, hey, babes, my husband, like, hey, we need to actually hire someone to help us with the research and the titling and things like that. I'm doing it now, but I need someone to help with this part, right? So like I think I'm more dialed into like who do I need to help us become more productive as a team?
Yeah.
And I think when I do that, I have more impact. That's what I'm seeing at least.
Right. So running a business with your husband, I mean, I'm sure a lot of systems have been had to put in place, to make sure that you're able to separate personal from work life when you
Yeah.
need to. And also, how do you delegate who does what tasks? How did you figure that out? What systems do you guys have in place for each other?
Yes. So step number one, therapy.
The best.
Right? When we initially started dating, my mistake with previous guys was because they would see me, I would always get into business mode and like, oh, let's do this thing together. And interestingly enough, when me and my husband started dating, I said, because he was also an entrepreneur as well, I was like, I'm your girl. You will not use this Georgetown brand to do whatever you're doing. So we actually
Interesting.
fell into the business really because like, yeah, this amazing idea. And I was like, oh, like, let me share some thoughts. And it just kind of like organically happened. I think sometimes
Ah,
when you like try to structure it, like that's when it doesn't always work out. I think it just felt natural. So I think that was step one. And he was doing individual therapy, and I was doing individual therapy very early in, right? Like he was doing his thing, I was doing my thing. So I think by the time we got together, there were no egos involved. This was his like what, third business. This was mine. Like so, I think we didn't care much about like who was in the front, like who's the one speaking, and we just have very honest conversations of who's what our strengths. Like he's a community builder. He's great at networking. So when it comes to like business development, that's his thing. When it comes to like speaking, creativity, socials, that's more of my thing, right? We have someone that helps in operations. So I think we have very honest conversations of our strengths, what works, and we set boundaries. So no business talk in the bedroom. When he starts talking about, oh, let's do da da da, you have to set the pace. If not, business will be 24/7. If it's early morning and he tries to go straight into a business conversation, I'm like, babes, I need to wake up.
I have not had my hibiscus tea yet.
Yes,
Okay.
I have not had my tea. Let me enjoy the outside. I haven't had sunshine on my face. Just get out of it, wake up.
Right.
So I have that very clear boundary with him. And then we also have time to unplug. So when we go on vacation, it's unplugged. Do not start talking to me about some plan or some thought or some idea you have. Yeah. And it's just like kind of creating those types of boundaries as well. We have date night. So we went on a date last night. No business talk. Don't bring your business, right? And I'm not bringing business. I think our marriage has actually gotten stronger since running a business. Interestingly enough, we have our arguments. Yeah, we definitely do. When it comes to business, sometimes we have a showdown. But I think because we respect each other as friends as well. I always tell people like, if you're honestly not friends with your husband, which is crazy for me saying this, but some people are not, don't get into business. People disrespect each other up and down because that friendship foundation was not set.
Great guidance.
Yeah.
Is there anything like how do you structure when it is time to talk about business? Do you guys have like weekly meetings with each other?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yes. So every Monday we have a check-in. We talk about what our deliverables are this week, what we want to get done. And then throughout the week, we typically have a time we actually like sit together and we talk about different things. Like we actually just finished doing that because we were like kind of looking at different clips and we're like, okay, we're going to upload this. It's going to be the title. Like we have kind of these moments of check-ins. But also, one of my biggest things I also do is say like, hey, don't micromanage me. I will not micromanage you. So he has clear tasks that he has put, to the test every week. I have clear tasks I do, and we don't get into each other's business. But like when it comes to like the actual growth of certain products, that's my thing. And he trusts me to do that. And I think there has to be trust. And I know sometimes like me and my husband, like any argument we had, it was because like a little bit of that like control came in, was like, oh, like I want to control this part. And I'm like, you cannot control this. If you said I'm going to do this, I need to handle that. Right. So there has to be like a trust on both sides that each person is going to do what they said they're going to actually do.
Absolutely. And how do you take care of each other emotionally while in business together? Because I mean, the ebbs and flows of entrepreneurship are nuts, the ebbs and flows of revenue or opportunities. So do you find that if somebody's feeling a little bit down, the other one can help pick each other up? Do you ever have
Yeah.
both down periods at the same time? What does that stuff look like for you?
Last year, there was parts of me that, I think because I was transitioning and I was kind of trying to put together a new product out there. So sometimes I felt a little disconnected, right? And I think what helped was my husband kind of holding down the fort. And we had a lot of like honest conversations about that. And I think anytime that we need to kind of like clear the air or like, there's just something going on emotionally with each other, we take a long 5 to 7 mile walk. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we actually go outside and it's 5 to 7 miles. It's probably 2, 3 hours. We're just outside and we're just really talking about everything. This is how I felt. This is how you felt. Like, and we just have like a really honest conversation. And that typically helps reset us, right? Or at least I'm walking away with clarity of like where he's at, right? Because like I remember like maybe 5 months ago, my was like, oh, I don't know the direction. I don't know if I'm clear. I said, okay, let's have a walk. And we just like talked everything out. And we kind of came back like a very clear reset. So we do that a lot.
I love that you truly have the practical actions in place for
Yeah.
you, where it's like, "Okay, it's time for the 7-mile walk," right?
Yes.
Instead of, "Oh, I'm sure that I'll come out of this eventually at some point and somehow." So, what other practical things like that do you have for yourself? Whether it's time to celebrate, we're doing this, or it's time to come make some decisions, maybe around decision fatigue. What other things do you have in place that are hot tips, as I like to call them,
Yes,
that, you
yes.
know.
2 things I do is I do a lot of journaling, and I try to find specific prompts that kind of help me, like, think through my decision. They help me think
Mm.
through, like, why do I feel disconnected or what is, like, going on? And interestingly enough, this is new, I tell people ChatGPT is not a therapist, so don't ChatGPT with the
I
therapy,
love that
like, so
disclaimer.
but a lot of times I'll ask like, "Hey, help me think through this decision." Like, ask me
Ooh.
questions that will help me think through. Like, I have 2 paths. Help me think through the decision. So really deep, reflective questions, and I take it and I put it into the journal. You should try
Using
it.
I'm going to. Oh my gosh, that sounds so exciting. Yeah, it's like you're having a conversation with somebody, without having to
Exactly.
actually, have a conversation with somebody in
Exactly.
private moments, maybe that when you don't want to talk about it potentially.
Exactly.
What are some of your favorite questions to ask yourself, whether ChatGPT asked you or you've asked
Mm.
yourself, or journaling prompts that help you gain clarity when it's time to make a decision about something or just try to get yourself out of maybe a funk or something?
Mm. The one question I think of at the top of my head is like, if I don't do this, will I regret it?
Mm,
And it helps me like think through like the pros, the cons. And then
right.
another question I ask is like, what is making me hesitant? And a lot of times when I ask myself that question, it's because there might be some deep subconscious fear or something I'm holding on to or something I don't want to like step into as well. Actually, I'll give you a good example. And this is actually the reason why real therapy is helpful. I was telling her that because a lot of the words I put out there are going viral, I'm getting attention from sometimes even celebrities, right? And they'll send me DM and they'll just be like, oh, like I really resonated with what you just written. And I told her that, like, oh yeah, I told them thank you. And I don't feel comfortable like going past that. Thank
Mm,
you. And
mm.
she's like, well, why are you making yourself small? They've reached out to you, why don't you engage with them? And I was like, oh, I don't want to put burden on them. She's like, why do you feel like it's a burden? And I
Yeah,
couldn't come up with the answer. And sometimes it's also connected with the inner child, right? I realized, it's the inner Chika that's a little scared, right? To
right.
step into this new, chapter, like being visible as I am. So it's a lot of deep stuff that people don't understand. And I think it's like, the difference between good and great with a lot of businesses is unlocking all those emotional elements.
Do you have any fears or do you feel like I'm happy to be visible? I mean,
Mm,
there's a lot of wonderful things that happen. Like, yeah, your celebrities reach out to you, say nice things,
yeah,
or there's certain opportunities that you get because of it. And then there's some really negative things that happen because of visibility.
I think the only fear I honestly have is someone saying I'm not living an authentic life. I honestly pride myself off of what you see is what you get, and I would hate for someone to think like, oh, like she's different in person. Or
Mm,
that saying of like never meet your like is it not
your
they don't
heroes or your,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, because they're not what you expected. I think as visibility happens, sometimes I think that like dichotomy happens because you have to insert certain boundaries. And so sometimes maybe there's a boundary you inserted with, a fan or community member, and then they take it and say, oh, like she's actually rude or something. So that's the thing I always like worry about with being more and more visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would love to know the difference maybe in your routine or schedule from your 20s to your 30s, whether that's around habits that you have now that you didn't
Mhm.
have, what you say yes to, what you say no to. What are some of those biggest swaps or differences?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that I've changed is having no problem saying no.
Yeah,
I have
huge.
no problem saying that. I feel like in my 20s, and I also felt like exhausted doing this. It's like, oh, I have to show up for every single person. I have to be at their birthdays, their weddings, their baby showers, whatever's happening. I'm there. I'm flying, especially because quite like around in my mid 20s, I actually left the US for some time and was living in Nigeria. And
Mm.
so the latter part of my 20s, I actually had to like fly back to every single wedding,
Oh,
baby
wow.
shower. When I finally got married, and I got married in my mid 30s, some of those people didn't show up. I'm now like, I have no problem saying no. I have no problem inserting my boundaries around my time. Other things I do is I have a different relationship with friends. I communicate to them, hey, you may not hear from me in a while because I'm doing this, but I may not see you physically until X amount. Like I communicate these things. I think in my
Right.
20s I didn't do all that. It was just like, oh, we gotta go to every happy hour, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. No, I communicate and I've changed relationship with my friends. And the other thing as well is I'm trying to and still do surround myself with people who are building things like me. I've joined like groups of people who are, maybe they're building a newsletter, maybe they're building a podcast, maybe they're building, they're scaling a business, right? And I've actually put myself into those groups. I think before, in your 20s and more of your circle around maybe people you went to high school with, who you went to college with, maybe just colleagues. But now I'm actually like putting myself with around other entrepreneurs, and I feel like also building friendships with them as well. So those are like a couple of things I'm doing.
As your values change as you get
Yeah,
older, you kind of actively have to seek people out with those similar values versus maybe
exactly.
just who's around you. You're just it's gonna be a mixed bag of people,
Yeah.
which is fine, but you really have to kind of zero in on people with shared values, and I absolutely, have felt that as well. You mentioned living in Nigeria. Where do you live now?
Yeah, I'm bicontinental. So right now I'm in the US, right?
Okay.
And I'll be here for some time. But then typically I'm in Nigeria as well. I have a home in Lagos. I love living in Lagos. It actually
Wow.
affords me a soft life for
Nice.
real. And I think this is something that America has to figure out. And I'm waiting for it to happen. I think specifically with women, the moment you decide to be a wife and start having kids, I think it gets very challenging for many women, right?
Yeah.
If you do not have the means to have help, right? To have a nanny, even helping someone helping you cook, like doing the chores. Like there's all these things that add up, and how many women have invisible chores, right?
Yes.
And then a lot of us, especially in your 30s, if you're, because 30s, most of us, not all, maybe we're going to the VP, executive, managerial track, right? Or you're going on your own running a business. And I see so many women having to make a decision between like, do I wait? Okay, how do I balance it all? Okay, I have to slow down. Decisions that I think women have to make that men don't,
Yes.
right? So I told my husband, okay, we're getting married. We're gonna have a child probably in a year or two. I need to live in a country where I can easily afford help for these parts of my
Yeah.
life because I'm still building a business with you, and I don't want to feel like I have to take the back seat because of that. And I feel like in Nigeria we are more of a communal society, so it's literally a village of people helping you with different parts of your life, like the woman who comes in and helps, cook is
Yeah.
actually my mother-in-law's auntie. So she comes, she helps, and things like that. So I think that's really, really important to happen. And I think, unfortunately, in America, you may not always necessarily have that help that is needed.
Becoming a parent, in the
Yeah,
United States versus what you've seen in Nigeria and
yeah,
in the US, it takes a village to raise a kid, but we don't have the village. Like, that's the whole
yeah,
problem, right? There's that huge gap. And then the maternal mortality rate in the US is crazy. So
yeah.
what differences have you noticed in Nigeria of becoming a parent versus what the systems are here in America? Have you noticed some big differences with, how mothers are treated or just that transition into parenthood that might be different?
Yeah, this I actually learned, even though I'm not a mother yet, but I started to learn these things because I started seeing other women around me become mothers. And also just because I'm doing the investigation because I'm like, I want to be a mother soon.
Yeah.
So number one, just even being pregnant is very different than in America. From my understanding, in America, it's a lot about your insurance provider.
Yeah.
And if you don't have insurance, good luck to you, right?
Right.
Because having a child is extremely expensive. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to have a child. in America, and even to go through the IVF process, it's $20,000, $30,000
Yeah.
minimum
Yeah.
each round.
Oof.
Versus in Nigeria, if you want to do IVF, it's $5,000. Right?
Wow.
It's
Wow.
significantly cheaper. Number two, if you go to OBGYN, you can get a 3D scan, right? You can see the baby 3D in Nigeria. And in America, you have to pay extra for that, right?
Mm.
So that's a key difference as well. Most of the time in America, you're just getting the typical sonogram, and in Nigeria, you're actually seeing a 3D of the baby. The other thing I would say is once you become a parent, and this is cuts across like all cultures in Nigeria. I'm from the Igbo tribe, so we have a thing called Omugu. And Omugu is when your mother literally comes and lives with you, and she's taking care of you and the baby for 3 months. It's
Wow.
standard. It is like the other day my mom was talking about it. She's like, "Oh, where's my grandchild coming?" I'm like, "Mom, give me another year.
We will have
You
our
will get
time together soon.
yes." And we'll have our 3 months bonding time, right? So it's interesting because
Wow.
it's almost like you're becoming a child again by having a child because your mom is literally she's with the baby day and night. She's taking care of you, she's helping you, and that is standard. In America, it's not like that. You go home with your child.
Oh my gosh.
It's very, very different. And then literally, you can afford to have help. So it's very common for everybody to have, I mean, depending on how much money you have, but I know people have two nannies, three nannies, one for each child. Everybody gets a
Wow.
nanny. So it's quite different. And it's expected that once you have a child, and after the removal, a nanny will come and take care of that child with you. So I think the biggest difference I see with parenthood is that, my friends that have children, it's like they get back into the system. Like, it's not like oh, I have to get a babysitter and this and that. It's like, okay, when do you want to meet? Because they have help at home to take care of that child. It doesn't slow down their life, right? I think that's the biggest difference I see versus in America, again, depending on how much money you have. I've heard some crazy things around. It's like $3,000 to $4,000 a month for daycare,
Oh
or
yeah.
60,000 upwards to 100,000 plus for a caretaker. Sometimes people can only afford a night nurse. I mean, it gets really expensive.
Right.
Having that help, and I think in other parts of the world, not even just Nigeria, it's affordable.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible that's just expected and built in. And let's say that somebody doesn't have their mother in their life for whatever reason, would that mean another woman in the family would come and help? Like it's just that support is kind of built in, whether it's your mom or your aunt or something like that? Is that
Yeah,
how it goes?
yeah. So, if obviously if I'm married, my mother-in-law, they might have to fight.
Who's gonna get to come?
Yeah, because I already see my mother-in-law like give me that look, like,
So you'll have too
you
many
know,
people involved, maybe.
yeah, too many people.
That's
Or older
perfect.
aunts as well. The older
Wow.
aunts will come in because again, Nigerians, we are communal. So it's like, and I even see this with like marriage. So for example, there are many situations where maybe, for example, the father is not present in the life anymore. An uncle steps in because before you get married to someone, you actually have to ask for permission from the family, right? So my husband had to literally come to my house and ask permission from my mother and father before he actually even proposed to me. But let's say my father was not there or not in my life, an uncle would step in, right? And you have to ask permission to the family. So yeah, it's very like the family is very involved in the marriage and with having the children. I think that's the biggest difference in America, where like people are like, oh yeah, I haven't seen my parents in a year, or I haven't connected with them. It's very interesting. Actually, Sahil
Wow.
Bloom talked about this in his book, where he was like, some people will say they'll see their parents 15 times before they pass. Because if you think about it, you're seeing your parents once a year,
Right.
it adds up. Yeah.
Wow. At least I can speak for myself. I wasn't really encouraged to learn about other, other ways of life growing up, in the school
Mm,
system and stuff. Other
yeah.
countries, how other countries, the cultures there, how people live, or how they even view the United States. Because it's very
Yes.
interesting when you get older and see what opinions people actually have about how we do
Yes.
things here.
Yes.
And it's almost like it's discouraged on purpose because if you open your mind to how other people are living and the types of support maybe that they have that we don't have here, you start to kind of rethink what you've been taught in this very kind of
Mhm.
individualistic society. So I just really appreciate you shedding light on that. And I think
Yeah.
that's gonna, I don't know, open some people's minds to some new way of doing things, or things that have been around forever that we just haven't really built into our systems yet.
Yeah.
Well, this hit on a question I had for you of what you've learned by living in very different places, and so
Mm.
that's a big lesson. Are there any
Yeah.
other things that you've learned by living in Nigeria versus living in the United States? What has each kind of taught you about yourself or the cultures?
Mm. I think two things is we take rest seriously
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Nigeria, right? So the biggest thing, and it's interesting, whenever I talk to my friends about like visiting me or like let's go on vacation, it's driven around like their jobs and PTO. It's like, oh, like I have to make sure I have enough PTO for this, and we're trying to schedule it in. In Nigeria, it's very common. All of August, you're off. You are traveling somewhere. A lot of people doing family vacations, and
Wow.
actually in Europe too. In Europe, during the summer, a lot of people are vacationing for extensive periods of time.
Right.
Versus in America, it's very like, oh, 2 weeks. In Nigeria, it's very common throughout the week. You're connecting with people, with friends, and again, because they have support at home, taking care of children and things of that nature. In America, I'm like, if I want to see a friend, it's like, okay, girl, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks are fine.
Right.
Because all my friends have children, they got demanding jobs. Like, they're like, I have to schedule it in, literally.
Yes.
Versus in Nigeria, it's like almost every week I'm with friends, I'm hanging with them in my home. Like, it would be weird not to see them regularly. So I think that's the thing I see. And a lot of people feel like, oh, yeah, like sometimes, yeah, I don't see someone for a month or two because of life. So that's the biggest difference I see.
Oh my gosh, is it so hard being in the US? Like, knowing that there's this other way of life? Is it hard coming back here? Or is there something that you enjoy coming back to?
Honest, let's be honest, right? America's not easy, but the energy, the entrepreneurial energy is unmatched.
Oh,
It's unmatched.
yeah.
The innovation is unmatched. And there's a well of people doing interesting things like yourself, right? The depth of these type of conversations. So I always want to come back. I was born in Virginia. I still gotta come home, connect with the people. I
Yeah.
always be inspired. Um, I would say like in Nigeria, we don't have the level of the types of conferences that happen in America. I think like even having the masterminds, those things, those concepts are still quite fresh in Nigeria versus in America as well. So for me, it's also a way just to connect with really inspiring people. And that's why I still come home. And
Mm,
it's like
yeah.
things in America like Amazon, shipping in 2 days, on the
The
shipping 24
conveniences.
hours. The conveniences. America has that locked down. The conveniences,
Yeah.
you can't beat it. So it's
Uh,
interesting. It's very interesting, like how Nigerian life is. It's quite different than American life. And I think I love having both. That's why I'm so very comfortable.
what a cool example of how your life can truly look how you want it to look. I mean,
Yeah,
the fact that, you get to live in two, different places that tend
yeah,
to different parts of yourself, and also how maybe one thing doesn't tick all the boxes, and it's
yeah.
okay to have variety in your life. Can we talk about romantic stuff really quick?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's a huge difference with maybe what you're attracted to or who you're attracted to in your 20s versus 30s and beyond. What kind of qualities did you find yourself attracted to when you were younger that you maybe wouldn't be
Ooh,
attracted to now? Or what kind of qualities does your husband have that maybe you weren't really
yeah.
going for in
Yeah.
your in your early 20s?
So it's so funny because this conversation is probably my most controversial post.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a thread about this, and it has like 5 million views, and it's a lot of
jeez.
people debating back and forth about this, right? So let me break this down because I
Okay.
literally talk about the 20s and the 30s. So I feel like in the 20s, you're normally optimizing for that like high school fairy tale love, like the butterflies, the desire, the passion, the fire. And when I think about the relationship I had in my 20s, that was pivotal to me learning about love. It was all those things, right? He had an 8 pack, he was chiseled, right? It was a lot of fireworks. It was, and the highs were high, but the lows were low.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was not a steady type of love. It was like if I was to draw a chart, it's like up, down, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was love, right? And there was a lot of like nights with me also crying, even though like he was the love of my life and everything like that. It was all over the place, and I didn't realize like that's actually not a healthy love. I
Right.
thought that was it. I was like, oh, that's what comes with it. And I think a lot of women in their 20s, especially like Gen Z, it's like, oh, how hot is he? Does he light me up and all those things? And I'm not saying you shouldn't have those things. I
Right.
think that was the part that people didn't understand when I was saying about the thread. But when I said in my 30s, I remember I literally wrote it down. I did not write anything physical. I don't remember writing
Mm.
anything physical. No,
Yeah.
I didn't want to optimize for that. My husband and the love of my life, they look completely opposite. Different body shapes, different complexions, different looks, very different, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But I think the things I talked about that was important to me in my 30s was kindness, generosity, an abundance mindset, a sense of ambition, clear of who he was. In my 20s, the guy I was with, unfortunately, there was an ego. Like he had a huge ego. And because I was super ambitious when I was in my 20s, I remember there was a day he was in medical school. It was crazy. Like, you're in medical school. Like, you're doing okay in life, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, let's go to this like networking event. So we were going to a conference and we were going to a networking event. I said, hey, come to this networking event with me. Like, we're gonna meet a lot of cool, amazing people. And he's like, well, I don't want people like confusing who we are or like comparing each other. And I was like, well, why
Mm.
would they do that? I'm doing this thing at my job. You are in medical school. We're not doing the same thing. We're not the same people. But
Right.
what I didn't realize was that my light, right, was too much for him. In my 20s, I had no idea about this concept. I did not even understand that like a man could be intimidated by me. It did not compute at all
Right.
because again, I was optimizing for love, fireworks, desire, hot sex. That's
Yeah.
my thought. You know,
Yes.
I did not understand like emotional intelligence. I didn't get any of those concepts. It wasn't until in my 30s when I was dating and emotional intelligence was high. The reason I wanted someone who was clear about themselves because I knew where I was going in life. I knew I had big dreams, big ambition. I did not want someone who was going to keep trying to make me small. And when I tell you my husband is my biggest cheerleader, like when I'm on a big stage, he loves it. He brags about it. He puts on his Instagram stories.
So
That
nice.
was more important to me. So I think my post was controversial because a lot of people thought I was trying to say like you should have passion, you should have desire, or it's one or the other. But what I was more so saying is you're looking for someone who is constant. Sometimes it's boring. There's a comfort. And I think you're also looking for safety. And I think a lot of women don't understand when you're with a man, it makes you feel safe. Your nervous system feels so different. And that
Yeah.
inner girl wound that a lot of us may have for different reasons, it starts to heal. With my husband, I'm like a little girl and I'm giggling and I'm laughing. And like sometimes, like literally, I'm in the airport, like, because he handles everything. I don't have to deal. He does everything. He
Yes.
leads, and he's a leader in our home. So I say that is the things that make me happy. And I think a lot of times when you're 30s, because a lot of women are more sure of themselves, that's what they're looking for. That's
Right.
what's important to them. And it's very different than I think in your 20s.
Yeah. I remember when I met my husband, I just as cheesy as it sounds, I felt like I was home. I know that sounds so cheesy, but
Mm,
I felt so
no.
comfortable and warm and like I could truly be myself. I didn't have to put on any
Mhm.
kind of act like I did maybe with other guys that I had dated. And not
Yes.
an act, but just I don't know, kind of walk on eggshells a little bit or always make sure I looked a certain way or whatever. And it wasn't like the crazy intense firework kind of
Yes.
experience that I had with the up and down relationships like you talked about.
Yes.
It was just peace. And I'm like, wow, this guy really feels different. And then I married him. So I totally understand. But there was a quote, I listened to one of your interviews, and there was a quote that you said that was just a great mic drop moment. And it said,
Mm.
most women are single because they're spending time with the wrong men. And so, oh boy, can we talk about that a little bit? Because there's, when you're single and you really are not with anybody and you might be working on yourself or looking or, being open to something, or you're with somebody that is not a good fit. And you're with
Yes.
somebody who is not kind of matching your energy or your values, but you're staying in it. That's kind of a different experience. So anything that you want to say around that quote that you shared?
Oh my goodness. They know it doesn't make sense.
Right.
They know, like deep again, your intuition is like red flag, red flag, red flag. And then they come to me to like ask for permission to stay.
Oh, you're not gonna give them that permission to stay, are you?
No, I'm not. I say, so why are you there? And then they're trying to figure it out. You have no business being with this man. You have none. Your intuition, your gut has told you it does not make sense.
Mm,
Why are you still there? There's so many different things they may say. It's fear.
right.
Sometimes it's, oh, I think this is the best I can get. I remember one conversation I had with a woman. She was comparing this man that they did not even ever get into a real relationship. This was like a 1 month situationship. And she
Oh.
was comparing him to some new guy that was looking for commitment.
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
well, why are you comparing this person? Right? Like, he didn't commit to you. He clearly showed he was never going to commit to you. And it wasn't even a relationship. So, what is the comparison? But
Yeah.
there's so many women that are in this predicament. And again, I always tell people there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. There's, sometimes it's trauma. But I always tell women, like, you're single because you're still with someone that is not aligned for you, right?
Mm,
And the moment you let that person go, you'll be so shocked the person that comes into your life. And I say that because it came from my own experience. I was with a guy, and when I tell you, my intuition was telling me it was off. Like even to the point where sometimes I was stuck in the house and I felt off, but I was there because I was like, oh, he's 40, he's stable, like all the things. But my body knew better. And eventually I had the courage on New Year's Eve to say, I had to let this relationship go. Basically, I was telling myself I have to go into the new year, new me. I planned a trip. I was supposed to take a solo trip to Dubai. I was going to have a hot girl summer. I had a whole plan in place. And then literally 30 days later, I met my husband.
oh, wow.
It doesn't happen that fast for everyone, right?
Right.
I don't want you
Right. Another
to try
disclaimer,
to
everybody.
exactly. It's like the formula, like let it go, man go. 30 days later, a new man appears. But I try
Yeah.
to tell people, like, I think when you let that person go, you're telling the universe I'm open to
Right.
the real thing. I'm open to commitment. Don't be holding on to something, and it's coming from a scarcity mindset, feeling like there's nothing else going to happen. You have to have, like, when you're dating, you have to have an abundance mindset. I know it's hard. I know, like, more than ever, women are just like confused, like, what is going on with these men? These men are not ambitious. Like, I get it. Trust me, the data does say that, men are also having a crisis with themselves because more and more women are educated, we're running businesses, we're getting promoted every day. So
Right.
there is a little bit of things going on with men, but despite all those things, you have to feel abundant about dating. And when you do that, I tell women, men are like taxis, right? Don't hail down a taxi that has the light off. The
Yes.
light is off.
They're
Don't
busy.
hail it when they're busy. Look for the guy with the light on, that the door is open. That's the taxi
Ye
you answer.
I've had many conversations with, friends who the the fear of not finding somebody who meets their
Mm,
standards and expectations, they wanna find a partner, but they don't wanna lower their expectations, and so
yeah,
it's one of those things where they're kind of staying single by default because they do not need a partner the way that,
yeah,
we used to
yeah.
financially or for survival, and so what do you say to the person who is not settling, but they also feel like crap about that because it means
Mm.
maybe it's taking them longer to find somebody who's kind of lined up with them.
A lot of times they feel down because of the timeline. right? Which
Yeah.
is the timeline that was set. I don't know when it was set, but there was this thing of in your 30s, married with kids. That
Mm,
was the timeline that was put in place. We have to be honest. Society has shifted
yeah.
completely. And because of that, we have to set a new timeline that there's none.
Mm-hmm.
There's no timeline. You may meet your person in your 40s, your 50s, and it may not be what you wanted. It may not be what you expected. I thought I was going to be married by like 24 because I met that my ex around like 19. So I was like,
Mm,
oh, we finished college. We should be married. Everyone around me was getting married, and I always tell people my best friend got married like literally 10 years before me. So if I had held on to this like timeline, I would have been miserable. Live your life, like whatever it looks like. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's exploring things. It's actually a good thing because it's giving you more time to be clear of who you are. It's giving you more
right.
time to be sure of yourself. But you're coming into it with a new perspective, right? People who actually get married in their 30s, the divorce rate actually lowers at this
Right.
because you're more clear. So that's what I was trying to tell people. I know, like, I get it. Like, especially if you are on socials and literally your algorithm is showing you another wedding. Like, there's a song right now going viral, and it's literally like every wedding is being showed up on TikTok. So I get it, but also
Mm,
understand you don't know their life, you don't know their stories. And I always ask them, do you want to step in their shoes? Because then you got to step fully into their shoes. And there are parts about
yeah.
their life you may not want.
Absolutely. And it's a great
Yeah,
reminder to know, even let's say that you're trying to stick to a certain timeline and you
yeah,
get married or you do something because of this arbitrary timeline that,
yeah.
society has set for you, you've set for yourself. You might find yourself in the same position in your 30s or 40s, not with that person anymore, looking for somebody who's more in
Mhm.
alignment with you. So, I mean, you could just end up in the same place. Even you might skip that first partner or that first marriage and just find somebody that maybe
Yeah.
is a better fit for you. And I know that for me in my 20s I felt like I was learning a lot by doing, in the sense of dating a lot of different people, trying to figure out what I like and don't like by having
Mm.
experiences. And then once I felt like I knew myself better and what I was looking for, I didn't feel like I needed the same dating people experiences. I felt okay to
Mhm.
say, I'd rather be on my own and wait to meet somebody that I feel like is a better fit than dating just to date and learning by experience, I guess. And it's so funny, another disclaimer, but I also met my husband within a few weeks of ending a former relationship
Mhm.
because I'm like, you know what? I would just rather be on my own and see what happens with somebody who's actually a good fit versus having a boyfriend just to kind of have one. And I met Cam within a few weeks of that. So it is funny because it can happen quickly. It might not, but it can. And maybe
Yeah.
that's maybe hopeful for people. But you brought up them. The stats are very interesting about how women are staying single indefinitely or much longer than they
Mm.
used to. And have you noticed that the majority of men, if we're talking about heterosexual relationships, are you
Yeah.
are you noticing that they are stepping up to kind of meet women where they're at with the expectations they have now? Or do you feel like they're kind of shying away or feeling kind of bad about themselves? What is going on with the men in this equation from your perspective?
I still think there's two categories of men, and this is largely contributed to really their foundation that was set. So if I speak about specifically the Black community, right? Again, this might get controversial, but it's the truth.
Mm.
So Africans, specifically Nigerians, those men are brought up knowing they have to be the provider. It is ingrained
Oh,
in their DNA. It is like pushed. It's like a narrative that's pushed often. Like you are the provider, you are the head of the household, right? So that mindset makes them very ambitious. And a lot of times you quietly, you may not even know they're Nigerian. You'll see a lot of Nigerians in high level roles, again, like there's always this joke, like you're either an engineer, lawyer, doctor, like that is usually the
mm,
options your parents give you, right? I know for me, my mom was like, you're gonna be a doctor. And I broke that rule, but that's typically what's pushed on you, right?
yeah.
And so because of that, I think a lot of those type of men tend to be still at that same level. So for them, it's more of the issue of I have all this money, I want to enjoy it, and I don't want to settle down. So I'm seeing more of that in that specific light. They have the money. I know a guy right now. He makes $500,000 a year. as an executive. 35, he's not trying to settle down for whatever reason. And so then the other side is there's men who maybe didn't get the certain type of education, don't have this high flying career. They're seeing women like literally steps ahead of them, and there's confusion because they say, I know I'm supposed to be a provider, but if I can't be one, what do I offer? And they don't realize there's emotional intelligence, there is support, there's so many other things a man can offer, a woman outside of just money. But I do tell, women that there are, beautiful relationships where the woman is the breadwinner and the man is not. But if he's not, he has to be emotionally intelligent. He can't be, I'm trying to take care of you as my third child and take care of the home. Like that can't be happening either. My fastest growing audience is men because I actually think there's a lot of men that are confused. There's like I don't really know where my place is in society. And, so I always tell women like empathize with men. Like I get it. I know the world was set up for men, but like this era is really confusing for them. Hopefully there'll be kind of like a reset of what that looks like for men. But I think right now they're in this like in between thing.
Absolutely. It just shows how powerful conditioning is. And do you think a
Yeah.
lot of like, your 30s and beyond are really trying to understand what your conditioning was and how it impacted you and the choices you've made and making a kind of a new decision going forward? Maybe the standard way is what you really want to do with your life, or maybe it
Yeah.
isn't.
It cuts across all parts of your life. And when I see the messages I get from people, a lot of times it's like I put this unnecessary pressure on myself. There's a lot of comparison of others. In order to move past that, it's really just trying to let go of expectations of not only what society has placed on you, but yourself. And I think people don't forgive themselves for the pivot. They don't forgive themselves that sometimes there has to be a reset. And also sometimes there has to be reinvention. And especially at every decade, there might be a nugget to learn from the previous decade that needs to be put into this new decade, and it might require that reinvention. So a lot of times the language I write is through that lens because I don't think there's been enough language around it. I think the language has been, okay, you go to high school, then you go to college, then you get a job, then you move up the ladder, then okay, now you get married, now you have kids. It's a very linear timeline versus it's gonna look up and down,
Right.
circle around, around. And so a lot of my language is around like understanding that, and just letting go, being patient and being gentle to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chika, thank you so much. What would you like to leave people with? And then how can people find your work and all that good stuff?
Mm. I want everyone to understand it's okay to evolve. We talk about transition and pivoting, and I feel it because I know from my community. It is too many times people are afraid to do that rebuilding. They're afraid for what reinvention looks like, or what it looks like on the other side. And I really want people to understand it's okay and it's expected. I think life is more colorful when you do reinvent. Some of my favorite people or at least celebrities or personalities, it's because they learn how to reinvent. And I think I'm going to even start writing out those case studies because people don't realize like how they're doing it. Me, you can find everywhere on Chika Uwazie, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my TikTok, as well. And I'll also send a link as well for a newsletter just so you can, if you want to tap in and learn everything around self-identity, reinvention, and life pivot, it's all written there.
Thanks for hanging out with Self-Helpless. Feel free to share this with someone who could use it, and you can binge related conversations linked in the show notes. Ad-free episodes are now available on Patreon, and because I'm practically allergic to social media, the best way to get notified about new episodes is to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or join the email list at selfhelplesspodcast.com, where you will also find some free goodies like a watch and read list and the quote buffet. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.